Welcome to episode 365. That's right, a whole year in slow motion of An Unearthly Podcast, streaming live on the 5th of August 2020 and featuring the Krotons, written by Robert Holmes and starring Patrick Troutman as the Doctor, Fraser Hines as Jamie McCrimmon, and Wendy Padbury as Zoe. I am Bill Gond, the host. With me are Randy Gond, co-host,
Yeah, it only took us 8 years to get through a year of episodes.
Matt Gond, our technical director,
Runta, Zunta, Zu.
and Thomas Gond, our color commentator.
We will take gondolas to Gondor.
So how's everybody's week been?
Not too bad, though I did work
Weird back and
4
forth.
days in a row.
So I don't know if you guys have been following, but a tropical storm pretty much just climbed up much of. I don't know if the whole East Coast or just the northern half of it.
Is that why we're getting 50s and 60s here?
That's what I was kind of
Maybe.
thinking.
I do know that quite a good amount of trees are missing half of their limbs and/or branches, and a good amount, about half of the city and the neighboring cities are out of power.
Yeah, we got like a couple of sprinkles a few days in a row, and then everything went from like almost 80s with
No, not almost 80s. 80s
like
and
80s
90s.
80s and humid is actually what I was trying to say, and then just suddenly dropped into like the 60s.
Mm-hmm. I haven't had to run the air conditioner in 3 days.
I could
and
actually
I
close
had
the door, I think.
and mind you, I had been running the air conditioner constantly since mid-June
Mm-hmm.
because it was just too freaking hot. It was climbing into the 90s and 100s in the afternoons here. I'm just like, no. And now it's just been nice and cool. And hell, I even had to grab the comforter last night to sleep because I was chilly even with my normal blanket on. And that normally doesn't happen to me. But I had an absolutely crap Monday. So, and really, it's one event, but it's one of those absolutely horrific events. So I had a doctor's appointment that day. I had to drop Aaron off at work early because I had to get to the hospital at 2:30 to have an EKG taken. Well, I was also supposed to have my appointment with my my cardiologist at 3:30. I was not done with the EKG by 3:30 because they got about halfway through that, or 3/4 of the way through that, got stuck, and eventually had to inject me with dye so that they could get proper pictures taken.
Jeez.
Now, I don't know if any of you have ever had an EKG taken.
Nope.
Can't
No.
say I
But
have.
they basically take this device, put cold freaking gel on it, and proceed to stick it as far into my left boob as possible
Okay.
to the point that it hurts. And they proceed to do this for over an hour in various painful positions. So pretty much by the time I leave, the entire left side of my chest is bruised all to hell. I'm about 20 minutes late for my appointment, which means the doctor has to start doubling up to try to get everything in, which means all the waiting took forever. I'm sitting there playing Pokemon Go in the doctor's office with a freaking mask on, which Aaron says makes me look like a Morton Joe. waiting for the doctor. I didn't get out of the doctor's office till after 5:30. Now, mind you, I have game that night at 7. So I pretty much ran through McDonald's because it was the only thing that's directly on the way home. Got in about 6:10, 6:15, got up to the apartment, and basically had time to eat before I set up for a game, which then got canceled.
Ah.
Of course.
Because because the GM and one of the players got on a tangent for about an hour, and it was 8:30 by the time they're like, yeah, we should probably start. And then they're like, then they proceeded on tangenting again for half an hour, and at that point I was like, no.
Done for today.
Yep.
Put fork
So
in this baby.
I futz around for another hour, get dressed, go to pick up Aaron. I'm a little bit late because my back popped out as I was getting dressed. I had previously injured my back while making breakfast over the weekend, and it's just occasionally just keeps popping back out. Joy. So eventually I get out there, pick up Aaron about 20 minutes late. We have to go shopping. So I get on the Beltline heading down towards the west side and where we go shopping. And Aaron's like, I forgot my antacids. Could we stop by the apartment so I can pick up my acid? Apartment's in the opposite direction of where we have to go. I'm like, couldn't you just pick up antacids at the store? She's like, yeah, I guess so, but I'll be doing that right away. And I'm like, that's fine. It'll take me a while to get out and get a cart. So we do that. We go shopping, get all of our stuff, get it in the car. She gets in, we take off. She's like, oh, we also have to get gas. So I basically change my direction, head to the gas station. 2 blocks in, she's like, I'm starting to feel kind of nauseous. I'm like, uh-oh. So as we're getting there, I'm like, are you going to have to blow chunks now? And so, we could pull over either to the curb or to the store where she would be sick. And she's like, no, I'm fine as long as I don't move. Can you pump gas? So I start pumping gas. I'm about $10 into pumping gas when I hear a sound from the car. And I'm like, honey, are you all right? And she goes, no, it's everywhere.
Ah.
And I have to finish pumping gas because the thing's in there. And she's in the car going, oh my God. And I'm sitting here going, oh shit. And to top it off, as I'm getting into the car to drive her home, some guy comes up and is like, you have a couple bucks, man? And I'm like, no, I don't have any. Oh, please, man. I did it. And she's like, and Aaron, who the door's open and the light's shining on her, is like, will you shut up and let him get in the car? I've got vomit all over me. The look on this guy's face was almost worth it.
I believe the expression Aaron told me was he immediately went wide-eyed, hands in the air, and proceeded to walk backwards.
Yes.
Like you were holding up the panhandler with vomit.
It was quite that. We got home and apparently what happened was we had ordered Chinese over the weekend. And
she had Chinese leftovers at work?
She took Chinese leftovers into work.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, we didn't go to a Chinese restaurant we'd been to before. We'd ordered from someplace new. Now, the thing is about Chinese restaurants, you either get good Chinese, decent Chinese, or death. Apparently, Aaron, so ordering from a new Chinese place that you've heard nothing about is like playing Russian roulette. Well, apparently Aaron actually pulled the live bullet.
More like the live vomit.
Well, So it gave her food poisoning. So she was down all of Tuesday, resting up. And she felt good enough to go into work today. So
Well,
there.
there's
But
that.
yeah, she had cleaned out the car. So I was actually happy today as I went to take the car to the car wash.
Oh,
I
it's not
didn't
too bad in here.
I didn't open the door and go, "Oh God!" So, and I told her too. I'm putting this on your credit card, hon, because you blow chunks in my car. You pay for the cleaning. So drove it down to the local, deluxe car wash. Paid for the major package, which comes with the air freshener that they put in the car.
Ta-da. Vomit
Imagine if
smell.
insurance
Gone.
covered that stuff.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh, I can't say my weekend has been that interesting. I finished a game on Friday, started a new game on Monday, and yesterday I was feeling like really off. First, it started with me having stomach aches on Tuesday, and then it went away halfway through. But then I had like sporadic migraines throughout the rest of the day until I had dinner.
Mm.
Don't know why. Had hamburger helper. All of a sudden everything slowly starts to calm down. I'm like, well, gee, there's a half a day that could have been more useful. Thanks, body. Just fight me for no reason until I overfeed you. And today I've been perfectly fine. But yeah, oh yeah, speaking of which, I'll be talking about that game I finished on Friday in Geek Talk.
All right. Anybody else have an interesting week?
Yeah, not really. It was just I worked like 4 days in a row for the first time in ages, and was mainly like, "Wow, I really hope the virus doesn't come back up this way," because I would really, it was kind of angsting over that. But otherwise,
Oh yeah, I have someone that I used to know on my not my Facebook, on my Twitter, and they are just freaking out today. They're having a little bit of a cough, so they're like, "Did I get it? Did I get it? Did I get it?" And then they're
Oh.
hearing like some other weird, like random aside news, and they're just freaking out even about that. I'm just like, dude, you really just need to disconnect and go take care of yourself.
I have the day from time to time where I'm hard of breathing, and I'm like, okay, is it asthma hard of breathing, fat hard of breathing, overexertion hard of breathing, or COVID hard of breathing? But that's about the worst I tend to get.
Yeah, this guy just was go completely meltdown today. I'm like, dude, you really need to calm down and go relax.
I get hard of breathing all the time, but that's called heart issues.
Mhm.
And being forced to wear a mask, because even with the air vents, if you're walking, you're still not replenishing your air as fast as I need to. So yeah, I'm like inside the car wash today because there's this long walk to get to the where you drop off the car to where you pay, and I'm just like, ugh, ugh, ugh. Swear to God, I want to put an oxygen tank on the back and get some of that medical tubing like on a CPAP machine and just hook it up so I actually do look like a Morton Joe.
How was your service today? Mediocre.
Like at that point, it's almost get the full Bane when when you feel like you need a little extra. Press a button, get some.
No.
I want to drive down the belt line like this, complete with the clear plastic chest plate and the blonde wig. Because just think about driving down a major belt line or a major highway like that. You look over and the guy next to you that's driving the vehicle is freaking a Morton Joe.
But yet have a few guys shave their heads and just hang off the sides and be the war boys.
Although I think you would need a vehicle that matched that to have the full
It
effect.
doesn't matter. He could be in a Dodge Dart. I'd still be like, I'm getting off at the next exit.
No. You want a modern, untouched vehicle? I dare you to find a Pinto. Just don't hit the rear bumper.
So with that, should we move on to
Yeah.
Not birthdays, but the show.
Yeah, let's move on to tonight's show. On which we do not have birthdays because there was nobody of note that had a birthday this week. A bunch of one-role actors and a bunch of one-time writers. We do have a little bit of news. And then we have the Geek Talk we didn't talk about last week, plus a couple other things. And then we have our episode summary. Whose job is it this week?
It's mine.
Okay. And then our review, our final thoughts, and our ratings. So let's get right to it. I forgot to color coordinate. Bad, Randy. Okay, so
biscuits.
who wants the one piece of news? Bill?
Sure.
I mean, it's not really actually. You were
It's
the
not
one
a
that
big
pointed this
thing.
out.
Yeah. I'm just loading up the link now because I had not prepared myself to speak more than one sentence about it.
Well,
So
yes, you told me about it, so
right. So Eric Saward, who was the script editor for much of 80s Doctor Who, or at least a good chunk of it.
through at least the final season of Peter Davidson, up to pretty much the Trial of a Time Lord, I think.
Yeah, I think he left during Trial of a Time Lord, something
Yes,
like that.
he did.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so much of 80s Who you're going to would recognize as his flavor. And he is currently running a Kickstarter, which was pretty much immediately fully backed. Yeah, so right now, okay, it hasn't gotten much in the past week, but it's still at about 1,000% of its goal. For a comic miniseries starring Lytton, who you might remember from Revelation of the Daleks and Attack of the Cybermen. And
Oh yeah, he asked for $887. He's gotten over 11,000.
Yep, yeah, and it was at 8,000 last week, and it's gone halfway through its time during that time. And there's some pages up on the Kickstarter page. Looks like a good chunk of chapter 1 is up. Basically as the preview to get people to pledge. So basically the main point in pledging now is to go for, if you want any of the backer rewards. There's a pretty good variety there. Did they add any stretch goals over the last week?
Well, apparently, if you
Looks
get
like they did.
15K, they'll do a one-shot comic with one of his other characters, Orsini.
Okay. Oh, yep, that's what the Orsini logo there was about. Okay. Do you have any idea who that is? Oh, first seen in Revelation of the Dalek. Okay. So yeah, so another.
Yep. Another one of his classics.
Right. So yeah, so if you really want that to happen, that's a bit more to go. Oh no, it says Orsini one shot added. Oh no, wait, I'm confused.
Now it says if
Okay,
you
I'm not a fan
It's been
of the
added
formatting
to
of
the
this Kickstarter
freaking
page.
additional stuff, Bill. Yes.
Okay, well, it says stretch goal now added, and then there's like you have to scroll down a shit ton to see what they're actually talking about. I'm not a fan of the way this is formatted, but
I just saw the text. If we reach 15K by the project end,
15.
I don't even
Okay.
see where how much they made.
it's at
All the way up top right.
Yep.
Oh wait,
Next
the
to
top
the
right.
trailer.
There's nothing there. Go way
Well,
up to the top. Nothing. There's a login. There's a search, and if I scroll down, there's the picture of Lytton with the video, and then it goes
to
right
the
down to
right,
support.
to the right.
Yeah,
of
it
the
should be to
picture
the right of that. But if you're not seeing it, I'll just so I was saying they've reached 11,420 of the goal of 887. And of course, it's probably translated. It was probably something in Great British pounds originally, which is why the odd number.
Yeah, it's the goal was £678,
Okay.
and they've
It's still an
raised
odd number.
they've raised £8,725.
Yeah, it's not showing it for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Or it looks like one.
229 backers and 1 week to go.
Mhm. Looks like one of the things you can buy is to be Tuckerized into the comic.
Mm.
It's always fun. So yeah, if you're interested in that, there's not a huge amount to talk about there, but that's just something if you're a fan of 80s Who.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a fan of 80s Who and you want to know more about the character.
And apparently, well, Lytton was one of his better creations.
Yeah, it was one of his better creations that did come back multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
Came back twice, because the first time we saw him was Resurrection of the Daleks, where he was leading the Dalek task force.
Mm-hmm.
And then we saw his end in Attack of the Cybermen, and apparently this would happen between the two.
Yeah, we're not even sure how much time passed for him during that time either.
Mm-hmm. Well, one would assume at least 2 years, so.
At least.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, one of the alternate covers is actually a picture from his original episode appearance.
With the cop hat on.
Yep.
Yeah, that was from Attack of the Cybermen.
No, he was a cop, I thought, during the Dalek episode too.
He might have, as for a brief disguise.
Oh, maybe it was a different hat. I can't remember now. I'd have to revisit that episode. I know both episodes he was a cop, but I think they might have been different uniforms.
I think they were. Anyway, if you look down at the bottom, you can see a picture of Eric Saward there, and he actually looks like somebody that would be asking you for loose change. Oh, is Orsini the DJ from the Dalek episode?
First, no, I think he's the sellsword.
He was a knight of the Grand Order of.
Oh, him.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember because I hadn't seen that episode since we reviewed it.
Yeah, you're just mentioning that, and I'm seeing then scroll down. No. There was like the sellsword guy, the
Because
mercenary type.
they talk about the stretch goal and they cut to a picture of the DJ, so I was like, oh,
It's like, wait, really? No.
that wasn't sounding right to me, but I'm like, why are they using that picture? I guess they're using it as a reaction shot. I'm like,
The tales of his legendary cast of space knights who dedicate their lives to fighting against evil are known across the galaxy. One of the lines in here about him.
so in other words, he's a budget Jedi.
Kind of almost a bit of a dark streak about them, more so than Jedi were, but yeah.
Anyway, you can find this on Kickstarter.com. You can basically just do a search for Eric Saward Lytton Kickstarter, and it'll come up. Moving on, the only other news we have is there's a few Big Finish releases.
Mm-hmm.
The short trip for August is Downward Spiral, which, if I remember correctly, was a Fifth Doctor and Nyssa release. So Sarah Sutton narrating. Also out is a Sixth Doctor, The Lovecraft Invasion, and Fifth Doctor, Time Apart, which is interesting because it's a Fifth Doctor solo story. And you don't see many of those.
Nope. Not very many at all.
I just realized if the Lovecraft Invasion is about Lovecraft's fears coming to life, I wonder if it has like racial integration.
Oof.
I don't think they're going
Bill.
that deep into it.
Oof, that's the oof. Just oof. I'll
Yeah.
leave it there.
All right. So that's all of our news. Let's move on to Geek Talk. And the first up is Bill wants to talk about Marvel's Runaways,
Yes. So
which was on Hulu.
yep. So continuing my trend of binging shows that I had watched in the past and have been catching up on over the summer, I realized that there were now 2 seasons of Marvel's Runaways I had not yet seen. So I watched them over the past 2 weeks. Runaways, it has discrete stories, but it's one of those shows where you can binge it without even realizing that you've gone from season 2 to season 3. Season 1 did have a definite ending, but I almost feel like the first half of season two's plot could have been an extension of season 1, and the first half of season two's plot could have been an extension of season 3. So the stories are not as discreet as something like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, for example, even though people are tired of everything being compared to Buffy. That's the first thing that popped into my head. Um, so what this felt like to me was it felt like what I would kind of want to see a Teen Titans show be like. Um, I have not read any Runaways comics, so I can't tell you how faithful it is to that or what the tone of the comics are like. But like something like Teen Titans, it has a group of teenagers living in their own hideout that they've established and dealing with various problems, both as a team and as individuals. It did somewhat frustrate me just how they always seem to choose the most dramatic way to respond to any sort of problem. However, whereas in the CW, this is especially aggravating because they're adults. In Runaways, they're 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds and 14-year-olds. So it kind of makes sense that they're all idiots. Um,
Kind
so I could,
of like Shazam being childish because he's actually like a
right.
15-year-old kid.
Yeah. So I could kind of forgive that because it's the same sort of annoying drama in terms of like picking the most argumentative way to solve every problem. But I'm used to it from adult shows, and there's actually a reason why, hormonal 16-year-olds would be acting like 16-year-olds. I'm less forgiving when 30 and 40-year-olds are acting like 16-year-olds.
Oh,
Um,
so you mean real life?
sadly, yes. Um,
There are days.
Tying it to real life, they do have a bit of social commentary and the idea of how terrible it would be if everybody was addicted to their phones. But they don't really go too far with that route. It's much more about first a kind of alien invasion plot and then a extra dimensional witch plot. Um, Ending with a Cloak and Dagger crossover, and this actually did kind of annoy me. At the very end, I don't know if this was a comic plot or not, but they invent time travel to undo the major cost that they paid to win season 3, and that kind of pissed me off. I do
So they used a reset button.
Pretty much, yeah. So the last episode is kind of a time travel plot, and then they just like in the last 15 minutes of the episode or so, they're like, "Oh, we're also using this time travel plot to undo all of our emotional angst and reset the characters back in case there's a season 4." Basically, I'm not sure if they have one planned or not, but that's what it came across as to me. The prior episode could have been the show finale, and then this is like, "Oh, but just in case there's another season, let's undo the cost that we paid."
Wow. So let me just quote Mr. Science Theater for you on the way this season ended. Welcome to No Morals Theater.
Either that or they were just spoofing the end of Deadpool. Deadpool 2.
Yeah.
Or technically could have been spoofing the end of Superman 1, but yeah. Let's fly around the Earth so fast that we undo time and then spin it forwards again and then go and save Lois Lane. And there's nothing wrong with us stopping the missiles.
But overall, I would say I enjoyed Runaways. I enjoyed, they had a lot of different themes of light and darkness that were carried about in interesting ways. I kind of think I compared it to Teen Titans. they're the similar plots that they have, especially like I'm a big fan of Raven, but I'm not a fan of the way they handle her character and her father a lot of the time. They had similar plots in Runaways that I felt were handled much better with much more nuance, so I really appreciated that.
Okay.
So I would say, yeah, if you
I don't have a problem with how they handle it. I just have a problem with the fact that it's like the only popular plot they go to.
yeah, that's part of it, but it's there seems to be a lack of agency. Raven seems to lack any control of herself in a lot of Trigon plots that I've seen. Whereas here, the main characters actually, are making decisions and arguing amongst themselves rather than just someone taking over and saying this is your character arc now. So I enjoyed that part. So
Hmm.
ultimately, if you enjoy comic ensemble pieces, team shows, and something like Teen Titans, I would say you would enjoy Runaways, especially. Season one is a lot more them coming together and all the drama that involves. Seasons two and three are a lot more straightforward comic book show.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen it since season 1.
Might be worth catching up.
Mhm.
I might at some point. I've got a whole bunch of stuff on that list, unfortunately.
Yeah, don't I know it? All right, you good on that, Bill?
I'm done.
Yeah, so the
All right.
next is our video game stuff, and that starts with Owlboy.
Yep.
It's kind of funny because this was a game that I think I finished like right before we started like like I finished it in a way where I would have maybe been able to do it a month ago, but like I maybe finished it like after that podcast, so it wouldn't fit into Geek Talk. But yeah, this so it's I'm really gonna have to try and pull the memories from it. But the main thing that I took away from this game is I am terrible at these kind of games. or at the very least, or at the very least, the controls for me were a bit hard to get used to at first.
Actually,
Um,
with that, my first question would be, where did you play it?
the Nintendo Switch port.
Hmm.
I had intended to get it on Steam at some point, but at that point I used my Switch so much that I was just like, nah, screw it. And it might have been like going uh cheap on the Switch at the time, so I was just like, nah, screw it. I'll just get it on
Yeah, I can't say I
the
can't
Switch.
vouch for the quality of the Twitch port, Switch port, so I can't say.
Mm. Like yeah, it might have been one of those things where it being mainly designed for PC, like playing it with a controller is kind of weird. Whereas like aiming probably would have been a lot easier with a mouse.
It
Um,
depends because a lot of people still play with controllers on PC. I have two of them.
true. But yeah, it was one of those things where I obviously didn't struggle enough that I just would like give up in disgust or anything, because I obviously did beat it, otherwise I wouldn't be talking about it. But yeah, it was like um that was kind of annoying. The story was nice, of course, though it was kind of um weird in like the opening stretch, like the opening 10-20 minutes is a lot of just like the titular character just being shat on by a lot of people, and it's like, god damn, like way to set the tone, I guess. And it's like, yeah, um very interesting story. Like I wasn't like entirely gripped by it, I don't think, but the ending still was like, oh wow, okay, I didn't see this coming. um but yeah, I don't know if I could really necessarily be bothered to go back and try to 100% it. Because I think at one point I was like trying to, and then I was like, you know what, fuck it. Like these controls are too, at least for me, were kind of iffy, and I was just trying to knock the game off my to-do list because it's relatively short, ish. So it was just like, okay, I'm done, cool. I enjoyed it, and it really was. It was only as frustrating. Like I can see plenty of other people getting through this no problem, and it might even just be that because this is inspired by games prior to the era that I'm used to. Um, so it's also a matter of that maybe is why it's not gelling as well. But yeah,
You
um,
saying you need to get used to hardcore old school games?
probably. Um, but yeah, even then, with like I don't regret buying it or playing it. It was still very interesting. The characters were interesting. Generally, I'm a sucker for that kind of those kinds of graphics as well because it's essentially like a modern equivalent of like 16-bit or something.
hmm
Um, but yeah, I would definitely like if people haven't checked it out because I mean this is like a 4-year-old game at the very least. Um,
I think it's on my to-do list. I don't know if
uh,
I have a copy yet or not. I'd
hmm,
have to double check my libraries.
yeah. But yeah, I would definitely say it's worth checking out. If nothing else. So moving on from that, a game that I probably wouldn't have wanted to talk about next week, even if we had bothered to do Geek Talk because of the tone of it. But yeah, Danganronpa 2. Um, this game, like, I feel like this game, I can't even tell. It feels like this game is longer than the first one, but also it could just be that it took me longer because I started working more shifts as I started playing it. Or I was just
Yeah,
taking
that'll
longer
do it.
breaks, or yeah, or it was either that or like just I did a lot of grinding for stuff, um, when I normally wouldn't. Uh,
Hmm.
I feel like in some ways it's weird. In some ways, the game almost lost me at the start, but by the end of it, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm totally invested at this point. Because there's a few. I feel like in the first game, there's maybe like one instance of fan service, and it's like even then, it's like an optional thing. Like you have to have a very specific item in your inventory to get that scene. Um, in this, there's like a lot of it. Like there's like a character in it who's. It doesn't happen too often, and funnily enough, at least once they work it into the plot. But the idea is that she has a bad habit of tripping over seemingly nothing and ending up in really provocative poses when she falls. Like one, like the first time she somehow trips over cords that she shouldn't probably have tripped over, and ends up like basically on her neck with like her ass up, but it's like covered in a way that you can't obviously see anything, but like basically like a feeder over her shoulders almost, and it's just like, okay, we're going for this, are we, game? And there's like another point later where it happens, and that one's plot relevant, but it's just like, I could have done without that game, considering these are like high school students, but okay. And even like there's some stuff where it's just like I feel like this probably even had more characters that I didn't like. Which like is a kind of annoying trope when you're supposed to care about who survives. Though it's funny though, it is because there was a moment later on where one of the characters that is eventually killed off at some point. I was like, "No, not you. I actually liked you. Damn it." Like I wanted you to survive. What the fuck? And then they're like, I'll give them credit. The big twist at the end, I would not have called that at all. They kind of foreshadow it before the big reveal, but not much. And it's just like, you know what? Okay, that's a very odd way to go about it. Like, I think my mind went somewhere else. So when the actual twist was revealed, I was like, oh, okay. And it's almost the kind of twist where I'm like, oh wait, so does that mean nothing mattered? And then no, it's like, no, there is actually consequences to this, despite the twist. So I was like, okay, thank God for that. So yeah, I would definitely. Ultimately, yeah, it's weird. I don't know if I prefer the first game or not. Ultimately, if I do, it's probably just because there are more characters that I liked in the original game. But honestly, it's the funny thing is the further I got in, I'm like, wow, I'm kind of surprised this didn't get made into an anime. But from what I can remember bringing up when I covered the first game, it was a matter of the anime adaptation of the first game got a poor reception, so they just skipped ahead to. They just waited for the third game to come out and then did an anime of that.
Their theory might have been that the plot was already ruined by the game already being out, so they just went, eh.
The funny thing is,
either that or sales on this one were lower, so they're just like, didn't bother making an adaptation.
Yeah, let's see how 3 does.
Yeah. Of course, the funny thing is I almost would have been able to follow this up with the spin-off game, which I just call by the shortened title of Ultra Despair Girls, which is set between the first two games, which I'll say this for now. Thank God I played 2 first, because yeah, having played 2 and then going to the Ultra Despair Girls, yeah, there are very specific elements of 2 that would have been spoiled by playing the spin-off, despite the fact that it is set in between. So I'm glad I did that, but yeah, I've taken a break from this franchise in general. Just because of, the news we got last week, and I'm like, you know what, I want to play more lighthearted stuff. So like next week I'll probably have like the newest Paper Mario game to talk about if I do get around to finishing it, because I'm fairly close to the end. But yeah, I feel like if you're someone who's never played the Danganronpa games and are just even vaguely interested, I'd say get them. There should be packs where you can get like all 3 of the main games now. But the way I got them was I got like Danganronpa 1, 2 Reloaded or something like, or 1, 2 Reload or something like that, which is just the first 2 games bundled together for PS4 because it was going cheap. And I think, yeah, as far as I know, there's a bundle that has like all 3. It might just be in certain regions, I don't know. But yeah.
All right.
All you have to say?
Yep.
All right, Matt.
All right, then moving on to my game edition, which is Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition, which came out 3 years ago, if I recall correctly. Came out in 2017, which is the same year as the Danganronpa 2, if I'm not mistaken. So long story short, this is a remake of a 90s second edition Dungeons and Dragons game that takes place in the Planescape area of the franchise. Planescape itself, very quick synopsis, is a realm that sits in between all the multiverse, essentially. There's all these other realms that are like take place all over the place, and then in the middle is where Planescape is, and it's I believe the Outer Worlds, and it's essentially
Outer Planes.
It's Outer Planes, and essentially the main center of the Outer Planes is a giant mountain that goes straight up, and then around the tip of this mountain is a floating ring that is the city of Sigil. So what happens in Planescape Torment is that you are a nameless man with amnesia. Literally, however you design and play your character is all completely you. Matter of fact, I'm finding actually the urge to go back again just to play the character with high wisdom and high intelligence because you learn more and you can talk your way out of more stuff apparently. And you still get experience for talking your way through things too. But he's literally the character's name is literally the nameless one the entire game, even at the end. And he wakes up in a mortuary, and a floating skull called Mort floats up to him and just starts talking to him with a New Yorker accent. Yeah, hey there, Chief. How you doing? Who are you? And just basically goes like that. I find out that you have a tattoo on your back, which is a long description of things you should be doing, supposedly. And that you are missing, supposedly, a journal that you're supposed to find for your character, but it's nowhere to be found in your room, and you're literally just woke up on a slab. The mortuary is also being run by zombies, which are controlled by the group of people called the Dustmen. They're big, praise death type of people, and the faster you die, the better it is for you. So if you happen to accidentally piss them off on your way out the door, they don't mind killing you, because you don't belong there. So your first job is to escape the mortuary and the Dustmen. Your second job is to try and figure out who on earth you were and why you died. And then what you find out as you continue to advance is that you're being chased after by these shadow creatures, and you're trying to figure out where those are coming from too, while everything else is going on. Very quickly on, you can get a third-party member named Dakon. I forget what race he is. He's a race of people from a neutral realm, and he's one of the last users of a blade that his people use, which, depending upon his emotions, will actually affect what his blade does. It'll change shape and even change color. Usually when he gets angry, it turns pitch black, and he starts swiping at people with it.
So it's a mood ring.
Basically, it's a mood ring sword. I think, trying to think now. I believe the fourth character I got in the party was Anna. She is a rogue tiefling, and you actually find her as soon as you leave the mortuary. She's there for a little while, and she actually has a lot of these. There's a lot of little tidbits of actual voice work done in this game. Sadly, not everything is voice worked, and it's a long read sometimes. But one of the first voice bits you actually get of her, she appears to. I can never. My brain, for whatever reason, can never distinguish between Scottish and Irish, and people probably hate me for that, but that's an issue I have. But she has this really thick accent, and literally the first words off her mouth as you walk by, "Oh, it looks like the Dusties lost one of their deaders," as you're walking past. That's another thing I should mention, is that your character almost looks like a zombie. He is gray-skinned, has dreadlocks, and it turns out the reason why your skin is so like leathery is because you're literally covered in layers upon layers of scars and tattoos. Now, also your character is a guy that looks like he's running around in a loincloth with boots and like the strap from over one shoulder holding up your loincloth, making sure that it doesn't fall along with the belt. Like I said, you can do anything with this guy. You can make him a wizard. Yeah, he looks like a barbarian almost. But yeah, you meet her again later on, and she becomes a character member. For my playthrough, she became a love interest. And I'm trying to think. The other two I met along the way were Ignis, who is a man who became basically a halfway fire elemental. He's like constantly on fire. Apparently, he caused a incident in Sigil where he burnt an entire block, and a bunch of pissed off wizards decided to make him a gateway to the fire plane, which meant he lost his sentience for a while. And then the last one I met is Fall from Grace, who was a succubus, and she's the best healer in the game. I believe I had like up to 4 different versions of cure wounds on her by the end of the game. I guess I can go to story elements if you really want me to. Otherwise, about there's where I probably would stop. There's a bunch of plane hopping, both short bursts as well as literally different planes. And there is there's actually a point in the game where you also have to save a city that got pulled from the Outlands into a good plane of existence, and you have to save it by stopping the guy who pulled it in there, essentially. Gosh, there's a lot of stuff I could go into. I will say that you do find, one way or another, you do find you find out that the character is unable to die, which is what causes his amnesia. Because if he has a severe death and it's a nasty enough comeback, he will completely just go amnesic and not remember anything. According to Mort, he's been around for multiple versions of yourself. And at one point, you went so crazy that you chased Mort into the street believing he was your skull. Got ran over by a cart. Whoops, that was a short life. But also, oh gosh, where was I going? But yeah, there's just a lot of deep stuff that you have to unlock. There's definitely been multiple versions of you throughout the that have gone through stuff in Sigil, but at this rate, you're such a different person after so many rounds that people don't even recognize you anymore, even if they were around for your previous versions. And you do figure out that a hag took your immortality, did some sort of ritual to separate you, and that you need to go and find your immortality if you're ever going to stop the constant cycle of losing your memories and restarting again and again and again for all eternity. I guess that's all I'm going to cover on that, on the basic plot. The gameplay, if you ever played the first 2 Fallouts, it's made by the same people who actually made Fallout 2. Instead of a turn-based, though, it is real-time, but you can pause it, so you can cast spells and stuff and make plans like that as you're doing the live combat. And I will say that I think I prefer this over Fallout 2. Also, this game is massively open. I would literally compare this to the size of Skyrim as to how big and open and wandering you can go, much wandering you can do. You could literally spend hours upon hours just talking to side characters that you don't need to and just doing extra little side things. You could spend hours literally going through all the loot inside of the shops, and like there's certain areas, like there's an underground level by like quarter to halfway through the game that you can go into, and you can just grind monsters down there if you really want to. But yeah, there's just a ton of stuff to do, and I skipped through it as quickly as possible, and I still spent 30 some hours playing this game. Actually, almost close to 40. I think of it now, that if I remember the math correctly. But yeah, highly recommended. It comes with the enhanced edition, which you can get on consoles. I believe it even came with a Switch port. Switch port recently, and you can get it on PC. And they have enhanced the graphics to a higher resolution. You can actually zoom out and see more of the map, and they did a nice touch up on the map details as well. They have extra stuff for you, helping the sprites pop out if you really need it. Like they've added extra like shadowy borders to them and stuff. And they kept all the original voice work, and the music in this game is awesome. I love it. Just a really good game. And I would also add that within the last 3 hours of this game, I went from nearly crying to basically going, "Oh, someone's going to die today." in the matter of just 3 hours. Yeah, it definitely stuck with me, and it's probably been one of the best plays I've had in a while, I think.
All right. Well, I think that does it for our geek talk.
Yep.
Yep.
That'll take us to the episode summary.
Who was it today,
Okay.
Bill? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was him.
All right, Bill, whenever you're ready.
All right. And let's go.
All right, three.
Um,
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
okay, so two people are we start on a planet and we see that two people are selected to become the companions of the Krotons. Uh so they go into a machine, and you don't know, are the companions going to be, olives or boiled eggs or what's going on. Um the doctor and such appear on the planet and they see one of the people emerge from a gate and be killed. So I guess this isn't actually a salad. They then go into the city where the people were from, and they start asking questions. The people wonder why they're asking questions, so they explain that they saw one of the people killed. The people there are very incredulous about what's going on, and they explain. Some people call them the Krotons, some people call them the Croutons. Maybe it's just their accents. Um, but either way, they live in the machines and they rule the planet, and they choose the best and brightest to be their companions. Um, the doctor and companions go into back into the Forbidden Wastelands, where they find the second person who had been sent to become a companion of the Krotons, uh, who is essentially in a state of delirium, and she's brought back to be cared for. Uh, Zoe puts on one of the learning pods that the locals use and ends up being called by the Krotons as tribute. The doctor, in order to save Zoe, submits himself to the same process. They go through and their mind waves are kind of absorbed, which empowers the Krotons, who then realize that they're aliens, and that these people could have the potential mind waves that they need in order to complete their goal on this planet. In the meantime, a militant faction who has been trying to destroy machines with axes ever since they find out that the Krotons might be killing people are working to kind of take over in order to drive out the Krotons, while the more scientific faction is like, "Yo, what the fuck? We can't really overpower them. This is not going to be done in a day, literally." Um, the doctor and Zoe escape, but they do not realize that Jamie follows after them. After they return to the city, they find that Jamie had followed after them, so they go back into the machine in order to save Jamie. In the process, before doing so, I believe before doing so, they teach people to start experimenting with acid due to the chemical makeup of the Croton ship. They then go in with some acid, realize that the Krotons are probably going to escape from the planet and then kill everybody. So after talking with them a bit, they then pour the acid into, I think, the breathing apparatus or something of the Krotons, kill them all. They go back and find out that the militant faction used the same acid to destroy all of the Croton machinery. The end.
All right. 3 minutes, 34 seconds.
And I'm upset at you, Bill. You mentioned olives, but you didn't mention pepperoncinis.
Good point. Good point. I said hard-boiled eggs because I wasn't sure what other thing to say, but yeah.
Also, I would mention the fact that croutons are also frequently used in soup.
It's usually crackers in my experience.
French onion soups in particular.
Depends on the type of soup. I was going to say.
Now
Yep.
that said, I'm I've always been the person when they say super salad, I say, what kind of salads do you have? Always. So
It
I always go with
depends.
what kind of soup you got.
Yeah, I usually ask the type of soup. Because
French onion,
generally
maybe.
speaking,
Oh, a chicken dumpling, yes.
the only time I would not is if I'm getting something that already has vegetables and they might have like a clam chowder or something.
mm,
Chowder.
yeah, I would usually find a clam chowder around here on Fridays. No, I
Yeah,
usually
that would
ask
be a
what
Friday
kind of
thing.
soup they have, and generally there's a house salad, so I can usually go with that. Unless, of course, you're at the Olive Garden, in which case I'll get their salad regardless.
But yeah, I
And
thought
never any
crouton and I immediately
breadsticks.
thought Caesar salad. So
hmm Yeah, the second you started making that joke, I immediately thought of Olive Garden salad. So while you're sitting there summarizing, I'm like, what was the frickin' peppers in the Olive Garden
yep,
salad?
pepperoncinis would be right.
All right, so what do we like about the episode? Thomas, you're first.
Um, I keep coming back to the same thing, so fuck it, I'm just gonna go with it. Phil Maddox acting, who played like Elick, I think it was.
Yeah, he's
Who,
actually a Doctor Who regular, although this is his first
yeah,
appearance. You
mm,
might remember him better from War Games as the Warlord.
yep, and he was. Oh god, I can never remember the character's name from Brain of Morbius, but he was essentially the Doctor Frankenstein stand-in
Okay.
in that. Um, like the crazy dude who
Yeah,
puts
was
Morbius's
Ah,
brain in the thing. Just he had a long hair wig for that. Um, oh, he was in one other
Which one
thing, but
was
I forget
he
what
in
it was.
this episode?
he was the guy that took power,
The guy who
Yeah,
took
the
power.
asshole one,
mm.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
and it's Doctor Solon from the Brain of Morbius.
that's it. Um,
Yeah, I haven't seen a picture of asshole yet. Looking. I was thinking that might have been him. Oh, there he is. You can tell him by his distinctly large forehead,
um,
at least in this
yeah,
particular
like,
picture.
yeah, but like, no matter what he's doing, and I don't think he's necessarily done the same performance twice of the few different roles he's had. The same vocals to a point probably, but yeah, like I seem
Mm, Might be just a moment. Yep. Same old, same old.
to
He
always
was
enjoy his
also in the
acting when he
Power of
crops up.
Krull
That's
from
it.
the Key to
Mm,
Time. He played Fenner,
Mm.
who was now that was the one that was the role he regretted
yeah.
because it wasn't as interesting a character.
Mm. And apparently I forget what it was, but I remember reading that he came back for a big Finish thing that was like a follow up to one of the serials he was involved in. Um,
Sounds like he was prolific enough that he could have had a box set of just different roles from that actor returning in the Doctor Who universe.
Almost. Almost half as regular as the Bloody Companions at that point.
Yeah. Well, mind you, his last appearance was due to some massive casting issues. People
Oh.
either canceled and got sick. So he originally applied for one role, but it went to somebody else, and then he agreed to play this other role because because the person that was playing that one got sick, and the guy that got the role that he wanted then dropped out.
Well, there we go.
Downgrade and upgrade.
Big Finish specifically did a follow up to the Krotons with Colin Baker's Doctor, so that's
Oh.
probably what he would have been in.
Well, yeah, they just probably listened to the episode and go, "Yeah, I can do that voice."
That might be one to go into and find out what that's all about.
That's probably Nick Briggs doing the Krotons.
If the Crotons are still there, yeah.
All right, Bill. How about you? What did you like about it?
Um, so I think I'm going to say I like the interplay between the Krotons and the Gons, especially for this era of Doctor Who. I'm not going to say we definitely hadn't seen anything like this before, but it was definitely a lot newer and fresher than it would be in modern Who. Um, and it's just very interesting to see the way that the different Croton rules kind of affected different things, and ultimately they needed outsiders to be able to achieve their plan, because basically by limiting the knowledge the Gons were allowed to have, they kind of screwed over the fuel source that they needed, and needed the Doctor in order to break that cycle. So that whole kind of interplay going on, I thought was really interesting.
All right, Matt.
You know what? I'm actually gonna say the set design was actually pretty good on this one. Um, we do get like one rock quarry, which is where they land the TARDIS, and we do see a few little sequences back there again. But a mass majority of this was either in the village or inside the learning hall, where the one of the machine doors is at, and then there's the other door, which is also, I believe, a faked outdoor set. I can't, don't quote me on that though, but I think it was. And also, the stuff inside the machine was really well done. The learning library was okay. It was at least destructible enough to look, but nice enough to look authentic. These people seem to live in nice enough homes that they're not like horribly wanting or anything, but they're not exactly like high tier civilization yet either. And the Croton's ship has a lot of interesting stuff going on with little set pieces they can easily bring in and out.
All right. Well, I'm going to make a controversial like here. I don't know if you'll agree to me or not, but I happen to like Zoe in this. I thought she was a lot better established character than we saw back in the Dominators.
Yeah.
Yeah, by this point she was
She-
definitely a lot better established.
And you definitely get to see some of her swattiness.
There was some Ian-ness in her conversations with the Doctor as well. Some of the edutainment coming back.
A little bit.
A little bit, yeah. All right, so let's talk about what we don't like. Thomas.
Honestly, outside of like maybe the first time you hear it, the Krotons' voices are just like, there's one. I'm not going to pick it for worst scene, so I'll just sort of bring it up now. There's flat out a scene where they're talking to each other, and I couldn't tell that one had stopped talking and the other had started because their voices are so similar. At least in that scene, and it was just like, is this still the same one talking? Like, what's going on here? Like,
Well,
They're
obviously,
they're no cyber leader and cyber lieutenant.
yeah. Well, they were definitely trying to do a Dalek thing with them, trying to give them a kind of a Dalek feel, but it failed. Because remember, this was back when they didn't have the rights to the Daleks, so
I was
they're
kind of in
always...
the middle about them. They weren't horrible, at least voice wise. I was fine with it.
Because it was funny because at
Who was
times
it that didn't
one
like
of
the
them.
Quark's voice from last week?
That would be me.
I thought this was an improvement over the Quark voice, but that's just me.
Like, it was funny because at times one of them almost sounded like either just a working class British accent was coming through, or like possibly an Australian accent in some ways. Just exaggerated. It was just like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's really interesting when you can really hear an accent in an alien voice like that.
And it's not intentional, because sometimes it's either like shorthand, or like using Cockney for lower class, or it's like a parody. But if it's neither of those things and it's meant to just be fully, serious, it can throw you off.
So apparently, one of the Krotons is Robert Grant, who I'm seeing if there's any information on him.
I'm seeing Roy Skelton, Patrick Tuller, the Croton.
What's that?
So I'm seeing Roy Skelton and Patrick
Oh,
Tuller,
those
the
are the
Croton
voices. Okay. Roy Skelton is also one that I think did Dalek voices.
Yes, definitely. That's where I recognize the name from.
Although
at this era, the Daleks often had distinct voices because there were a few different actors per episode.
Patrick Tull. I don't.
Looks like that's his only Doctor Who credit.
Yeah, but he is from Sussex, so Roy Skelton, also from Sussex, but East Sussex. So yeah, if you're hearing an accent, it must have been a lower class, because
they're both from the same spot.
One's from Brighton, and that's Roy Skelton, and Patrick Tull is from Brexhill-on-Sea, so basically same latitude, different longitudes. Who knows? All right, Bill, what did you not like?
I kind of felt the Krotons came off as just a little easy to escape from, in the sense that it keeps happening, and people just kept like sneaking off and doing things without, when there was like their plan did not seem all that good, and it does seem odd that that given that fact that the Gons didn't like escape on a regular basis. Like I almost feel like, thinking about it, like it would remove any complaint I have if they found like there was a secret like cell of survivors in the wastelands who had all escaped and knew what was going on, but hadn't been able to make it back to the city for fear of being shot. Like that would almost fix it, because it was like the Doctor escapes from them, and then Jamie escapes from them, and
the thing about the other ones is they all had suffered the brain drain. So when they came out of that thing, they were practically zombified. The Doctor and Zoe escaped because they had enough higher intelligence, more than the Gons, and therefore were still able to think.
And Jamie?
Well, Jamie played possum after pretending to get killed. Then he just up and scampered.
Jamie doesn't have the brain smarts, but he has some wits about him.
Yeah.
Right.
And he also very nearly died because he got caught under the door, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for the Doctor and Zoe, he would have been...
Oh, yeah, the door towards the end of the last episode was slowly coming down as he was slipping out. Yeah. That's our Jamie.
All right, Matt, how about you? What did you dislike?
I have a Croton issue, too. It's not to do with the voice, but a certain design flaw. From most of the entirety of the 4 episodes, we literally see these boys from only the waist up. There's 2 or 3 shots where we see more than that, and they're basically just wearing a dress. It's just a piece of yeah. It all of a sudden just stopped.
Ah, but I was
Every-
saying this is your criticism during the era of Zoom meetings when nobody is wearing pants.
Except this is supposed to be a giant robot.
Yeah, I mean, would it have really broken their budget to get some boots and a couple, a couple pairs of moon boots and some some of that black plastic groove tubing that they use for the arms, only bigger?
Or even going cheaper than that. How about a black do that same dress thing but make it black and then have like some sort of like tassely things over it.
To add $10 to the costume, they would have had to cut a speaking role.
I think it would have been worth it. You could at least shown more than the waist up. And
Yeah,
not cut it less than 2 seconds.
I had issues with their costumes in general because the first time you see the Krotons step up out of that and face you with their arms out, the first thing that popped into my mind was mission imperative at 0500. Destroy spaceship. Kill Robinson family.
There's a little bit of that, but the other one I got was all dinosaurs fear the T-Rex.
Because those are literally, they look like the arms from the robot from Lost in Space. They do.
Yeah, like I was almost thinking, I was expecting if they had legs that they were basically just gonna look like that robot coming out, but with a different head.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, they didn't have the budget for it apparently. When they
Yeah,
needed the most.
when you can't have the budget to do what Irwin Allen is doing, yeah.
There's a reason why the following season they cut down the number of episodes per season.
Mm-hmm.
Was Erland Allen around this time? I forget.
This was 1969, so yes.
So yes, it was. Oof. Oof. When the effects of robot from Lost in Space outdo everything in your show. Oof.
Mind you, there's been a lot of fan base stuff that's fixed the dress problem. Some of which gave them like freaking legs that make them look like those creatures from make them look like Tholians from Star Trek the original series. But yeah, all of those were just fan speculation on what that should have been.
Yeah, the problem is that's all speculation and what fans say it should have been, but that's not what's on screen.
I guess given this, almost wonder if this is like it wouldn't surprise me if this is one of those cases where this was the serial that they picked to just snag some of the budget from to put to something else, especially given this came directly after the invasion.
Oh wow! Oh, I just found an interesting still frame here. Have a look at this. Copy image. Just yikes! Paste. They're literally wearing cloth that just hangs straight down from their torsos.
Yeah, it literally just looks like basically a sheet
Mm-hmm.
that they wrapped around the bottom of it.
Almost wonder if it's the leftover bits of curtain from the from the Dominators.
Hey Phil, yeah Steve. Glad I don't look silly in this. Dot dot dot.
So they didn't have time to finish the costume.
Yeah, it's either they didn't have time or they just really underestimated how much budget they needed to make those legs right.
Okay, so what I didn't like about the episode. Let's have the Doctor wax for a good chunk of a scene on what element the creatures are made from, completely ignoring the fact that that element has been known since the 40s in pretty much all of its forms to be toxic. That high concentrations of it are innately fatal, like
Oh.
almost
Oh.
instantly fatal.
So you're saying that by being aboard the Croton ship, they
They should
should
have all
have,
died.
or at least Zoe should have gotten
Zoe and Jamie should
poisoning.
have both been killed. Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Oof.
mean, to be fair, this is the I can remember a Troughton serial having an explanation for the God, what was it, the Ice Age or something, and it was like, what the fuck? It was like them matter of factly saying the shit that is like
Actually, just having to
total
think
bullshit.
if those two died, should have been dying when in near contact with that ship, so should have the rest of the civilization because they've been hanging around that thing for a
But
while.
they're not
Technically,
necessarily human.
human, yes.
Although,
Mm.
so when he said the worst smell in the world, he meant death.
Mm-hmm.
The worst smell in the world, which means that you're dying.
Yeah. They talk. I was reading about this element when they mentioned it because I didn't remember learning about it in school,
Same.
and I'm like, oh yeah, small amounts is composite toxic, but above this level, it's will cause you to become sick. Above this level, it's fatal.
But are
I'm
those
like,
levels of air concentration? Like, would the crystals be creating that amount of gas?
I don't think it's gas. It's simply the compounds themselves.
Hmm.
So even so much as touching the walls.
Yeah, and they're like picking at the door with a dagger.
Yeah. So I'm sitting here going, would be bad.
Just be really bad, like everybody in this room did.
When I look it up, it says mildly toxic.
It depends on the amount. Okay, in air, if you're imposed to as little as 0.01 milligram per meter cubed, you start breathing foul garlic-like odor.
So that's the worst smell in the world thing.
Above 25 milligrams per meter 3, it's immediately dangerous to life and health. Now, mind you, this stuff was made from nearly pure tellurium.
Right.
It would be exuding this stuff into the air in large amounts. So yeah.
So yeah, it would have cleared that room.
The good part is that the melting point of tellurium is in the 400 degrees Celsius, so it may be fairly stable, but I am by no means.
People can be exposed to tellurium in the workplace by inhalation, ingestion, skin contact, and eye contact.
Skin contact. So yeah, you're dead.
You're only supposed to get exposed to 0.1 over an 8-hour workday. Yeah.
Okay, so that's what it was. The Ice Warriors claims that plants produce carbon dioxide and not oxygen. So this is the science we're dealing with.
Somebody needs to go look at that book again.
Who's the script editor of this era? Come on.
I don't know. Did this have a script editor?
Yes. This was around the point where they had a separate producer and script editor.
Terrence Dix.
Ah.
Terrence, shame. Terrence, if you ever heard that there was a real world element, you should have checked what it does to people.
This was the era, though, where they had no executive producer.
Hmm.
They had a producer, but their exec had basically left. And they were still trying to find a new one.
Hmm.
Hmm.
All that being said, the show is still doing fine for itself, so
Yeah, it's
Mm.
just, it was, this season was just one of those where they were just having executive producer issues. The last executive producer, holy shit.
Either I'm just not seeing things, or Wikipedia includes less information about producers than they used to.
boom, boom, boom.
Apparently, the last 2 seasons didn't have one.
Hmm.
I'm just wondering if they had just gone to just producer and script editor at this point.
Yeah, because I wasn't aware of them
Yeah.
having separate exec and producer titles, at least listed on any source I had read.
Hmm. And of course it's funny because they essentially lost 2 producers in a row very quickly. I think because there was one before Derek Show, and then Derek Show was very briefly, and then he left when the after the uh um yeah John Pertwee era started. Like he was a very briefly the
Hmm.
producer
This
ultimately.
what,
Okay, so
I got to look
during
at.
this time, the producer was Peter Bryant.
Hmm.
And he would continue until the War Games, and then Derek Sherwin would take over, and then I think Derek Sherwin would only last through Spearhead.
Yeah, because he was like basically uh
And then
shifted around to a different show. Or
and
like
then
it was
Barry
he
Letts
was
takes over.
yeah. I think it was like he from what I can remember on the War Games DVD, he brought up that like he would only leave Doctor Who if he was um given essentially the similar like producer level kind of role because he didn't want to be script editor again or something.
Mhm. So yeah, this particular bit um, was producer and script editor were the guys in charge. And by the way, I should mention the fact that this story was a backup story.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Apparently, originally, Robert Holmes submitted this to the BBC in 1965 to be its own standalone serial.
Huh.
The head of serials took a look at it and said, no, why don't you go ask Doctor Who, see if they want to make it into a Doctor Who serial. So he did. And the person at the time was Donald Tosh, was the person that was in charge of approving new scripts for Doctor Who. So this would have been the Time Meddler and the Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve time. So basically the end of Verity Lambert's run.
And it wouldn't have fit quite as well, I don't think, with. Well, maybe. Yeah, I don't think it would have worked quite as well with Stephen and Dodo.
Yeah.
So they bought on it, but then they just stuffed it in a filing cabinet. Terrence Dix found it while clearing out the cabinet, decided to talk to Holmes, develop it into a working script, and then keep it in reserve when anything else fell through. They currently, then shortly thereafter, they had a script called Prison in Space, which was going to be a cosmic dystopian tale where females rule with dolly bird guards. And basically, they started to try to work with that and found out they couldn't. And they were like, well, okay. If you don't know what a dolly bird is, think bimbo.
Ah,
Oh my. So Doctor Who meets Death by Snoo Snoo.
Now, basically cute but dumb.
Hmm.
Anyway,
I feel like we recently reviewed a serial that wasn't too far off from that.
anyway, they decided they couldn't work with that one, and they basically dusted off the script, made a couple of adjustments to this one, and ran it past the script guys, and they're like, okay, yeah, we can run with this.
Hmm.
So it went from script phase to being shot like within a few days.
Ooh.
So that might explain why the
So
robot
the
didn't
script
have a
editor had
bottom
about
half.
the script editor had about enough time to be like, "Yup, Jamie doesn't know science. Yup, Zoe knows science. Okay, we're good."
It would also explain why the prop designers didn't have time to finish a full outfit for both robots.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and really that actually lines up now that I think about it. The reason the War Games is 10 episodes long is because there was supposed to be a 4 and a 6, and those both got scrapped, and they ended up just doing a 10 to fill the time.
Yeah, it was a frequent thing where they were like, "Oh yeah, the script will not work."
By the way, I think part of the reason why the different roles got switched around so much during this season was that Terrence Dix is credited on the War Games, and technically they can't be the script editor wasn't allowed to commission themselves to write an episode, so they probably did a
That's
lot of shuffling to avoid that.
yeah,
Weird, but
that's
okay.
it was a rule in the BBC at the time. That was why there's a lot of scripts that had a lot of Douglas Adams work on, but he didn't get credit for because he was the script editor at the time.
Hmm.
Technically speaking, the next serial after this, The Seeds of Death, Terrence Dix basically wrote episodes 3 through 6 of that, but he doesn't get any credit because he's the script editor.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And again, that was because things, stuff suck. And then Derek Sherwin is script editor for the Space Pirates, and then becomes the producer and the script editor for the War Games. Technically, is Terrence Dix, but he doesn't get script editor credit because it was written by him.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's this rule that they had back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s that when the whole production concept of showrunner took place, basically went in the scrap.
Yeah, then RTD was like, "Forget that. I'm writing half the episodes." And I'm not saying it was unilateral because television changed a lot between 1989 and 2005.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
oh yeah. Buffy
Mm.
the Vampire Slayer changed the way TV shows were made. So you can mostly put that on Joss Whedon's shoulders, because that was the first one I think that did that in that showrunner style. Though maybe it was Twin Peaks. Could have been Twin Peaks. I don't know.
Maybe.
Because I'm pretty sure Twin Peaks was almost all David Lynch's baby.
Oh yeah, that was definitely his baby. No, you don't make something like Twin Peaks and let somebody else handle it for you. That's definitely Lynch's weird little psychotic TV baby.
Yeah, but I don't know if he had somebody to edit his work at all or not.
I don't know, but I do know he had a lot of control over the show, and he also proceeded to make the TV movies too.
And the one theatrical movie that was released, I think that was Fire Walk with Me or something like
And-
Oh, I
that.
thought that
with
was a TV
that-
movie, but
With
yeah,
that, I
that
think
came
we're
out in
getting off
theaters.
topic.
But
David
anyway,
Bowie was there. Yes, I was thinking like 5 minutes ago we're getting off topic. We're kind of wandering
Yeah,
around.
we were Doctor Who tangenting, but now we're
well,
television
no,
industry
when we were talking
tangenting.
about the production budget, that was relevant.
Yes.
Because that suddenly explains a lot of things.
True. When we finally get to the bottom of it, it's like, oh wait, there was a lot last minute shit with this episode. No wonder there's some issues with
So
the
it might have been
monster of
that
the
they
week.
didn't have time to do the scientific research.
They
to go,
probably didn't have time to double
hey,
check the science,
thorium
and they
is
didn't have
toxic.
time to finish the props.
Yeah.
They probably begged, borrowed, and stealed what extra props they needed too.
Anyway, so let's go to favorite scenes. Thomas, you are first.
Let's see. I guess for lack of being able to come up with anything else, when the scene where the Krotons are trying to get the Doctor and Zoe to use the machine, and they're just like dicking around trying
God
to
damn it.
stall.
You mean after Zoe drops acid?
The quintessential second Doctor scene.
The doctor putting the headset on sideways.
Mhm.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Oh yeah.
I was just more than, well, I should stand over here. But I was going to stand over there. Oh, yes. Well, then I'll stand over here, and you'll stand over here. That's much better. Or better yet, I'll stand over here.
Makes much more sense. Get into position. All right. You're making me nervous.
Mhm. And yeah, then he puts it on. Then he puts the headset on wrong, and
Yeah, the 1 ear strap goes right over his nose. He's just like, no, how do I do this again?
meanwhile Zoe's already getting her brain drained. Yep. All right. Yeah, that was a good scene. So, Bill.
So now I need a second favorite scene. And wait, I'm like grasping at the vapors of a scene. I'm trying to remember the details of it.
I think I have mine. I'm trying to find the picture again.
But I'm gonna say I like the scene where the Doctor and companions are trying to explain what's his name, Abu or whatever's death to the people, and like like Jamie's trying to explain, and then Zoe is adding actual technical terms to it. Um, and it was both a good way to it was both a good way to show their characters and a good way to get the action moving on the serial.
Okay. To me
All
then.
right. Yep.
You mentioned Zoe dropping acid. How about the time that Zoe and the Doctor both dropped acid and got spotlighted and bubbling containers and flashing lights and oh god, they just went nuts in these crazy weird close-ups at an angle. That was just people having fun with the cameras while the two actors rested in chairs.
Oh, okay. So the original brain drain scene.
Yeah, the original brain drain scene is just like, oh wow, someone was having fun.
All right. So I think mine is the scene where the Doctor first takes the test to get on the ship and starts fucking it up.
Oh, I forgot to carry it. Oh.
Oh, I was working in square roots. Yeah. And then at the end of it is very pleased with himself because he did better than Zoe. Even though it took him 3 tries at least.
Yeah. And Zoe's like, oh, you answered more questions than I did.
Obviously, there's some competition there sometimes over who's the big brain.
My big and
right.
ginormous brain.
Least favorite scene.
I have mine.
God. I feel like I had one and now I'm just blanking. Let's see. Oh, you know what? I brought it up before, but just like that scene where two Krotons are talking to each other over a monitor and you can't tell which is actually talking. It
All
just
right.
sounds like one continuously going on forever.
All right. Bill?
I'm gonna go with that long drawn out shot where it's like they're switching back between two different, I guess they're two different lenses, images of the doctor, or like two different photographs of the doctor. And I was like, okay, yeah, they're looking at the doctor, they see him. I feel like you can communicate this point in, you know, a 20th the amount of time.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's
Okay.
it. It was just really drawn out and didn't really accomplish much.
All right. Matt?
So we have these unfinished robots, but we still want to have them running around in a rock quarry and go attack the TARDIS. How do we do that and still not show the unfinished prop really blatantly? Let's go for a really long, padded out first person view from behind the gun. And just add beeping noises. Thank you, show. Thank you. I want to club myself. Thanks.
But Matt, tell us how you really feel.
Oh, if I could
All
light the fire in thy soul to feel the same torture. Thank God it was short. Even then it was too long.
right. So, my least favorite scene is I had it, I just lost it.
Mhm.
Um
I had it. No.
oh,
Wait.
it's the one where what's his face takes over from the guy
Hmm.
and just proves to be basically his entire scene is him doing, well, I'm going to take whatever you recommend we do and do exactly the opposite.
That's so unrealistic. No real leader would do that way.
uh,
Yeah. But he does it so blatantly.
Is that the same sequence where they keep telling him, "You're not in charge anymore. This guy's in charge now," and he's like,
Yes.
"Well, I
Yes.
forbid that." And I'm like, and it's like you can't just keep acting like they didn't say anything.
Yeah, that's the same scene.
hmm.
You just kind of like, no, you're just talking in circles. Go the fuck away. Okay, final thoughts. Thomas.
um, I feel like this is not it's not by no means a terrible one, but at the very least is like either just decent or mediocre. A lot of what kind of pulls it up is just the acting, especially from the doctor and the companions. That saves it from being like uh necessarily boring or anything. Um, you know, I don't know if I'll ever watch this again necessarily. I might watch bits and pieces. Um, but yeah, like it's like it's okay. I don't feel like I wasted my time watching it. Um, I like I almost feel like people would probably be better just watching the bits and pieces here and there rather than the whole thing. But at the very least, I'm thankful that this is a four-parter because it did seem like there was some padding going on here and there.
Anything else?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay, Bill.
So one thing that I was really thinking of watching this episode, it was just kind of a funny look at the show over the years, is how in modern Who and possibly even the 80s Doctors, the Doctor would have come in and just been like, this planet should not be this far advanced, or like something to acknowledge that they're advancing in a weird uh non-linear way. And in this case, I don't think that's really ever outwardly discussed by the Doctor until Zoe starts bringing up that there are gaps in their knowledge. But that's this is before the Doctor that already has an encyclopedic knowledge of everything. So I think that's it's one of those things that's interesting to look at, the way the show changes over the years. What I also think is funny is that given the chemical chemical. Given the research that Randy looked into, this easily could have been a 5 or 6 parter, just by adding in an episode where Zoe and Jamie get tellurium poisoning, and they have to deal with that. So it's kind of funny, given that this is the era where they pad things out very often to like 6 and 7 parters, that did not happen. Overall, though, I enjoyed the story. Um, I don't I don't know whether some of the observations that would have been nice to be in the episode that I instead made on my own really add or detract from it. So either way, they're probably not going to affect my score. Things I mentioned, like how the Krotons were kind of self-sabotaging by not letting their fuel source become smart enough to properly feed them. But that's not going to either add to or detract from the rating. Overall, though, I think this was a fairly good story. Um, and 4 parters generally come out to pretty good stories because it's a good length for a full story to be told without too much padding. And I guess that's about the end of what I have to say.
All right, Matt.
In general, I think it's a pretty solid story. A lot of it went off pretty well, all considering. Um, there's some problems in particular with the costuming for the Krotons themselves, but outside that, they did some really good set design. Did also some really interesting effects of some of those sets. And also some of the other props went off pretty well too, including their weapon, which also I believe we commented last time. The robots didn't shoot anything, at least nothing visible, whereas these guys very definitely shot big clouds of stuff. Um, and majority of the plot went off really well. The main actors did really solid jobs all around, and I think outside of the few little problems with mostly the villain outfits, most of this went off without a hitch. Otherwise,
All right. Anything else?
that's about it.
All right. So, as I mentioned, this is a rushed episode, and there are some places where you can see it.
Mhm.
Not so much in the set design, but some of the costume designs failed, and some of the writing does fall apart. Um,
Some of the
uh,
research writing falls apart.
well, yeah. Well, also some of the concept writing. To extrapolate on one of the things Bill was talking about, obviously the Krotons are trying to raise these people to become smart enough to feed them, yet they kept killing off their smartest members.
You need to let them
Now,
grow a few generations, dude.
yeah, the best thing to do would be to release those people into a selective environment and let them interbreed, and then take the smartest of that batch.
That's eugenics.
That's eugenics. But considering that they were trying to go for a goal, that would have actually made sense.
Yeah, that would have actually made sense because literally these robots are going, we need the ones with the big brains.
Yes, and the fact that they care little to nothing about the Gons as a people and a whole. So yeah, I'm surprised they weren't trying to do some form of eugenics, but they didn't even think about adding that they didn't even think of that concept when they made the story.
Yeah,
So
it seemed.
that kind of I mean, I noticed it, I think, the first time I read the story, which was back in the mid to late 80s. And I'm like, huh. And then I was reminded it again when I watched it. So, yeah, that seems a little bit like a flawed. At the very least, you let those smart people back into their society, and wait for the next generation. But no, they kept killing the smart ones and letting the dumb ones breed. No wonder it was taking so long for them to find people of the right brain capacity. So, yeah,
If they kept going the way they were going, the next couple generations would turn into Mr. Gumby's. My brain hurts.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
the whole like banning science and only teaching them like from a set textbook doesn't help either.
no, it's like they did everything they did to hamstring themselves, which makes the Krotons seem like not a smart race. So, that does seem to hamstring the writing a little bit. But so yeah, it's a flawed writing with some flawed costumes, but some great acting and great sets. All right, let's just rape this puppy, get it over with, put it out of its misery. Thomas, you get first rate.
I've been going back and forth, and I think the acting's good enough that it can bring it up, or at least generally not hurt it insanely. So at the very least, even though I'm not giving it like a massively high thing, but I think the acting's good enough that I can justify giving it a 3.5.
All right, Bill.
I'm thinking that this one I'd probably give a 4.0.
Oh,
Matt.
daring are we, Bill? I'm at the 4.0 as well, just borderline 4.0.
I'm also at a 4.
Oh my.
See, there we go. I figured if I gave this a 3.5 that I would be the bottom of the barrel, and I didn't want to be for this episode. So I was like, let me give a 4. I think that's about going to be the standard.
Thomas
you
is
were
the
right.
low bar. Oh my.
And that will average this episode to a 3.9. At our rankings, that will put this at 187 out of 352 things reviewed. It is on par with, let's see,
3.9 is our mediocre range. Oof.
The Doctor's Daughter, The Chase, The Next Doctor, Blink. We really didn't like Blink.
No.
Monster of Peladon, Midnight, Into the Dalek, Warrior's Gate, Colony in Space, The Brain of Morbius, oddly enough,
Speaking of big
Deadly
brains.
Assassin, Knock Knock, It Is Better Than, Keeper of Traken,
Oof.
Boomtown, Ghostlight, The Faceless Ones, Enemy of the World, Girl in the Fireplace, etc., and is not as good as The Censorites, The Aztecs, A Good Man Goes to War, Attack of the Cybermen, The Runaway Bride, Vengeance on Varos, Heaven Sent, Terminus, etc. So there we go.
I didn't realize we rated Attack of the Cybermen so high.
We gave it a 4.0.
Yeah.
Anyway, there we go. 187, 352. That's all we have to say about the Krotons.
Okay, so this is the time where those listening at home get to tell us what you have to say. So make sure to post in the comments below what you think of the episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube or to follow on Twitch to keep seeing our new podcasts every week.
All right. Next week, we move on to the Third Doctor and start covering his unreviewed serials. We start in his first season with the inaptly named Doctor Who and the Silurians. Written by Malcolm Hulk and starring John Pertwee as the Doctor, Carolyn John as Liz Shaw, and Nicholas Courtney as Brigadier Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart. See you next week.
Good night.